Every letter he delivered was someone else's story, until he wrote one for her. Arthur had walked the same route for 32 years. He knew every crack in the sidewalk, every dog that would bark at him, and the schedule of every resident on his path. He was a creature of habit, a quiet observer of the lives he connected through paper and ink. He delivered bills, birthday cards, junk mail, and occasionally letters that held the weight of a lifetime. Then there was Elara. Her house, number 24 on Chestnut Lane, had been a boisterous, joyful home filled with laughter and the smell of baking bread. Arthur remembered delivering oversized packages for her husband, a passionate woodworker, and stacks of colorful cards for her children's birthdays. But for the past year, the house had grown quiet. The vibrant garden had become a little less tended, and the laughter had faded. Elara was a widow. Arthur's deliveries to number 24 became a source of quiet concern for him. He'd see her through the window, a book resting unread in her lap, her gaze lost somewhere beyond the glass. The mail he brought was mostly impersonal bills, catalogs, things that reminded her of a life that was now just hers to manage. He wished he could deliver a little bit of the sunshine that used to pour from her home. He felt a pang of helplessness. He was just the mailman, a fleeting, uniformed presence in her life. What could he possibly do? One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves crunched under his feet, Arthur paused before her mailbox. He had the usual stack of utility bill, a grocery store flyer. It felt so cold, so empty. On an impulse he couldn't quite explain, he reached into his own satchel and pulled out a small, blank postcard he kept for notes. His pen hovered over the card. What could he say? He wasn't a poet or a wordsmith. He was just Arthur. So he wrote what he knew. The chrysanthemums in Mrs. Gable's garden at number 12 are especially beautiful this year, a brilliant shade of gold. He signed it simply, Your Mailman. He slipped the postcard in with the other mail, his heart thumping a little faster than usual. It was a silly, small gesture. She probably wouldn't even notice. The next day as he approached her house, he saw a small change. The curtains were drawn a little wider. A small pot with a single, wilting flower had been moved to catch the morning sun. It was a tiny sign, but it was something. So he did it again. Heard the most wonderful laugh from the kids playing at the park on Elm Street today. He wrote on another postcard. Sounded like pure joy. Day after day, Arthur's small observations found their way into Elara's mailbox. Spotted a cardinal with the brightest red feathers in the old oak tree. The smell of cinnamon. He's coming from the bakery. Smells like a perfect morning. He never expected a reply. He was just sending out little pieces of the world he saw, hoping they might piece her own world back together. Elara had noticed the first postcard. Tucked between a credit card offer and a bill, it was a simple, handwritten note. It was strange, unexpected, and it made her look out the window. She hadn't truly looked out her window in months. The next day, another one arrived. And another. These anonymous notes became the highlight of her day. They were small anchors to the world outside her quiet house, gentle reminders that life, in all its small, beautiful details, was still happening. She started looking for the things her mailman wrote about. She'd walk to the window to see if she could spot the cardinal. She found herself noticing the shade of the sky, the sound of children playing down the street. The notes were like small, scattered seeds, and in the barren soil of her grief, something was beginning to grow. She started tending to her garden again, her hands digging into the familiar earth. One afternoon, as Arthur was placing a postcard in her box, her front door opened. Elara stood there, a small, shy smile on her face. She was holding a plate with a piece of freshly baked apple cake. "I thought," she began, her voice a little rusty from disuse, "that the person writing me about all the wonderful things in the world might like to taste one." Arthur felt his face flush. I just thought you should know," he stammered, gesturing vaguely at the world around them. "You did more than that," she said, her eyes shining. "You reminded me how to see it." She held out the plate. "I'm Elara." "Arthur," he replied, taking the plate with a hand that trembled slightly. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Elara." From that day on, Their exchange changed. Arthur still left his notes, but now they were more personal. Your garden is looking beautiful, Elara. The roses remind me of the ones my mother used to grow, and Elara would sometimes be waiting for him, offering a cup of tea or just a moment of conversation. She learned about his love for history, his quiet life, his 32 years of walking the same streets. He learned about her husband, the life they built, and the profound emptiness he left behind. They talked about books and weather and the simple, everyday things that make up a life. They were two people who had been living parallel lives in the same small town, now brought together by a few handwritten words. Their friendship blossomed, slow and steady, like a flower turning toward the sun. The quiet house at number 24 began to fill with warmth again. Sometimes it was the smell of Elara baking. Other times it was the sound of her quiet laughter as Arthur recounted a story from his route. One day, Arthur arrived at her door, not with a postcard, but with a single, handwritten letter in a proper envelope. It wasn't junk mail or a bill. It was addressed simply to Elara. She took it from him, her heart skipping a beat. Inside, his familiar, neat handwriting filled the page. He wrote not of the world outside, but of the world she had created for him. He wrote about her kindness, her quiet strength, and the way her smile had brought the son back into his own routine. He wrote about how delivering mail to number 24 had become the best part of his day. At the bottom of the letter, he wrote, "Every letter I deliver is someone else's story. I was hoping, perhaps, we could start writing our own." When he came by the next day, a letter was waiting for him in the mailbox. It was the first piece of mail he had ever received from number 24. On the front, in her elegant script, it said Arthur. He opened it, and a single word was written inside. Yes. Sometimes, the most profound connections aren't made with grand gestures, but with the quiet, consistent act of showing someone you see them. A simple note, a shared observation, can be the bridge that connects to lonely hearts and reminds them both that it is never too late to start a new chapter. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more stories that celebrate the small, beautiful moments that connect us all. We'll see you in the next one.